Well, if you saw the thumbnail, you'll know that I don't think Soulslikes are getting old, but what I do think is that there's a shift happening, and genre fatigue is a very real thing. We all have that one or handful of genres we can't get enough of. Obviously, for me it's Soulslikes, but I also really enjoy Metroidvanias, I like old school boomer shooters, and a new genre that's popping back up a bit is first-person dungeon crawlers akin to Kingsfield. We got Lunacid, which is super cool, and I played the demo for Hark the Ghoul, which I'm really interested in. But anyways, these are genres I'm always keeping an eye on, but the genre I'm exhausted of seeing is roguelikes. There's nothing wrong with the genre itself, I'm just tired of seeing it in the indie space. But that brings me to a point of genre fatigue. It depends on the sector you're looking at. It's tiring to see roguelikes in the indie space, but I might be interested in seeing a go at it in the AA or AAA space a bit more, such as games like Returnal or Witchfire. And that brings me to the point that if you dig deeper, you can find a lot more games outside of certain spaces. But anyways, right now, it admittedly feels like Soulslikes are popping up more often in bigger budget spaces, although it only feels recent that games in the genre and sector are finally standing on par with Fromsoftware titles or being good on their own. Beforehand, we got Nioh, which is a series that's obviously great and became something of its own, and the original Lords of the Fallen, which didn't hit as many notes as people would have hoped. But other Soulslikes were either 2D Metroidvanias like Salt and Sanctuary, or smaller budget 3D titles like Mortal Shell, Hellpoint, or Thymesia, and it's not that these games specifically are bad, but you can definitely feel a level of unpolished that doesn't allow the games to feel as good as FromSoftware titles. Now though, we got games like Liza P, which felt the closest to a Souls-like game that isn't actually developed by FromSoftware. Recently, we also got Black Myth Wukong, which people debate on whether it's a Souls-like or a simple action RPG, but Souls-likes are actually a subgenre of action RPGs. And when you look at Wukong and make comparisons to things like the healing and checkpoint system, resetting enemies, along with combat that relies heavily on pattern recognition, with expansive enemy and boss movesets that hit like a truck, causing a lot more of that trial and error element of Souls games, I can definitely draw the comparison. And if you still don't think so, would you recommend the game to the average or casual player with the description of, oh, it's just an action game? Probably not, because people might paint it as a sort of God of War game, just that instead of Greek or Norse mythology, it's Chinese. But if they purchase the game with that understanding, they're gonna get a pretty harsh reality check. But you see, this brings us to a point. What is a Souls-like? And that's even a subject of debate in the community, but usually it's games that have core elements of high difficulty, repeated character depth that drives player knowledge and pattern recognition, sparse save points, and giving information to the player through indirect storytelling. But here's the thing, there are a few games that have a bunch of these elements or only a handful, yet the games that have just that handful of elements are called Souls-likes, which causes more debate. But honestly, I don't know why there is so much debate because it's in the genre name. Souls-like. The key word is like. The genre isn't called exactly Souls. The genre means a game that has elements like Souls but not 100% one-to-one. But with all this being said, I'd say the average players who aren't super into the genre look at certain aspects of the gameplay and possible feel of the title, but primarily think of the high challenge and repeated death when they're thinking of a Souls-like. But there's tons of games that are extremely difficult and you'll die a lot in. I just finished Ninja Gaiden 2 Black on different modes. That game fucks people up on the very hard and Master Ninja difficulty. And I've also been playing the original, which feels even harder. But I'm not gonna sit here and say Ninja Gaiden 2 is a Souls-like when it predates the Souls games, is much more fast-paced, and falls in the realm of character action. But this is actually the interesting thing I've been noticing. Games that you'd consider Souls-likes are slightly dipping their toes back into character action. For example, the first Berserker Khazan. I played the demo for this game and I'm extremely excited for the full product, but what I find interesting about this title is that if you look at gameplay, you'll automatically assume it's a typical Souls-like with how its camera, dodges, deflections, and stamina system functions. But when you get to the second mission, the combat expands, allowing you to obtain skills for your weapons that can alter inputs and give you special abilities. The combat becomes a lot more fast-paced, flashy, and expressive compared to a traditional Souls-like. It honestly feels like a Nioh Light. But this game also has difficulty modes, a mechanic that gives you small amounts of XP after dying in boss attempts, allowing you to level up and get stronger for the fight, and a more straightforward narrative. It feels like this game is focusing less on being a traditional Souls-like with extreme challenges, but instead focusing more on the story and action itself. Another game that seems to be doing this is the upcoming Phantom Blade Zero, which looks absolutely insane. People would draw direct comparisons to Sekiro, but people who have played the demo consider it a crossbreed between Ninja Gaiden and Sekiro, but apparently the average player can pick it up and feel like a badass. There's different difficulty modes and an extreme difficulty when you beat the game for the people who want that kind of challenge. So it seems that a focus on classic action might be making a comeback, but taking minor mechanics from the Souls-like formula. So do we still call these Souls-likes or something like hardcore action games? I'm not sure, but regardless of whether you're a fan of traditional Souls-likes or action games, there's a lot of cool stuff coming out. So I mentioned first Berserker Khazan and Phantom Blade Zero, but we got AI Limit, which I played the demo for and feels more akin to a traditional Souls-like, being more slow and methodical compared to Khazan. We have Wuchang Fallen Feathers, which I'm really interested in. The combat looks very fast-paced and impactful. There seems to be an interesting sense of build variety, and the bosses look super badass. I'm very interested in seeing more of this. When it comes to more classic action games, we recently got Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which was a shadow drop in celebration of the upcoming Ninja Gaiden 4, which is a joint development between Platinum Games and Team Ninja. From watching the trailer, I think it looks awesome and I'm excited to see more. We also have Lost Soul Aside, which has probably been in development for 2 eons at this point, but is shaping up to be pretty good and is highly influenced by Devil May Cry, Final Fantasy, and Ninja Gaiden. Another game I'm insanely interested in is Onimusha Way of the Sword. The reason I'm really looking forward to this is because Onimusha predates and influenced Devil May Cry and modern Ninja Gaiden. You can actually play the first game on PC, and it feels like a blend between classic survival horror games and action titles, but falls more in line with the action category. It's a great game, and I really want to see more of this modern interpretation. Another game that looks batshit insane is Showa American Story. It's a Chinese-developed game that takes place in an America colonized by Japan in the 80s. That alone has me interested, but we got some wild-looking combat and goofy-ass characters. I'm super down for this. Something else that looks wild is Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. The combat looks more crazy than Like a Dragon Gaiden and Lost Judgment, which is pretty nutty to think about. I'm a big fan of RGG titles, and this one looks like a really fun time, which I'll definitely play this month. This is me primarily speaking on bigger budget spaces though. What about the indie space? Well, I found some cool looking stuff. I found something known as SilkRoad Project. It's a game inspired by classic hack and slash titles with small elements of innkeeping. What's interesting about the combat is that you have a sort of spirit pet that fights alongside you that synergizes with your combos, and you can also dash in between combo strings without breaking them, so you can probably do some really fun stuff. Another title I'm interested in is Homura Hime. It has elements of spectacle hack and slash titles, but blends it with some bullet hell aspects. I haven't really seen something like this since Fury, so I'm very interested in this. You see though, you just gotta keep a lookout. It may seem like there's a lot of Souls-likes, but some of them seem to be moving far away from the formula, and a few games are straight up not attempting to be Souls-likes. I think we're beginning to see a shift. But what about Fromsoftware, the granddaddy of Souls games? What are they making? They're developing Elden Ring Night Rain, which looks cool, but while I'm excited to see more Souls-likes, I'm more interested in seeing them from different developers to see their spin on the formula. When it comes to Fromsoftware, I think this is where I might be feeling a sense of fatigue, funnily enough. Don't get me wrong, I still want to see elements of what they learned from the Soulsborne series, Sekiro, and Elden Ring, but what I really want to see is them going back to older titles. They made a new Armored Core, but what I'm really interested in is seeing a spiritual successor to Kingsfield or Shadow Tower. I know the original Souls games had elements of these titles, but I want to see them build a brand new first-person dungeon crawler with everything they've learned from the recent games. I feel like there's so much potential to make something extraordinary here. Regardless though, I'm interested in seeing something brand new. In conclusion, I don't think Souls-likes are getting old, but I do think genre fatigue exists for anyone. And while there are a lot of Souls-likes that have been released or in development, it's only recently that they're reaching the same level of polish like Fromsoftware titles, and some of them seem to be moving away from the traditional Souls-like formula. Regardless, there's some really cool games that are in the works, whether they're Souls-likes or more standard action games. Anyhow, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. All upcoming games I mentioned will be in the description as well. Peace.